The year is 1473 BCE. On the west bank of the Nile near Thebes, dawn light spilled across the desert, turning the sand the color of dried blood. Henetmehet, a 22-year-old woman, stood barefoot on limestone hot enough to blister, her hands bound behind her back with papyrus rope so tight the fibers had cut into her swollen skin. Around her neck hung a wooden placard, painted with hieroglyphics declaring her crime: adulteress. Adultery in ancient Egypt was more than a moral failing. It was a violation of Ma'at, the cosmic order that ensured the universe remained in balance. A woman's transgression could threaten bloodlines, pollute sacred connections to pharaohs, and in the eyes of the law, destabilize reality itself. 3 judges sat beneath a reed canopy, their faces hidden behind masks depicting Anubis, the jackal god who weighed hearts against feathers. They had already pronounced Henetmehet's sentence. There would be no leniency, no appeal. Punishment was not merely corrective, it was purification through suffering. The first stage was marking. A specialized priest approached, carrying bronze tongs heated in a brazier until they glowed dull red. He clamped them onto Henetmehet's nose, twisting cartilage from bone. The sound, wet, ripping, echoed across the square. She screamed, thrashing against the guards. Her face would bear the consequences for the rest of her life. Next, she was branded on her cheeks with a copper tool shaped like the broken heart hieroglyph, heated until white. The marks were permanent, a visible declaration of her crime. Any citizen encountering her could insult or assault her without consequence. This was the Egyptian concept of purification, physical pain reinforced by public shame. Henetmehet's punishment continued in the House of Correction beneath Karnak Temple, a building deliberately left off official maps. 3 levels below the temple courts, 15 small stone rooms branched off a central corridor. Each room measured 10 feet square with 6-foot ceilings and iron rings set into the walls for restraining women. There were no windows, and ventilation was minimal. It was a place designed for systematic torment. Her 15-day purification sentence was divided into 3 5-day phases. The first 5 days focused on hunger. She was given only water, measured precisely to prevent death. Starvation was believed to purify the reproductive system, burning away spiritual pollution. Modern understanding reveals an additional effect: blood sugar crashes, weakness, confusion, and reduced resistance to pain. Days 6 through 10 introduced pain purification. Priests struck her back and legs with reeds in medically calculated ways, hard enough to cause tissue damage but not enough to kill. Chronic pain, permanent scarring, and muscle damage were the intended results. Instructions from medical papyri ensured women survived, but healing was intentionally incomplete. Days 11 through 15 involved exposure purification. Henetmehet stood bound to a wooden frame in direct sunlight, her mutilated face visible to the public. Guards allowed only irregular sips of water, creating unpredictable suffering that broke women psychologically. Temple records show that exposure purification often led victims to submit entirely, pleading for mercy that would never come. Henetmehet was not alone. Thousands of women suffered similar fates, often due to false accusations. Egyptian adultery law required only the testimony of 2 male witnesses for conviction. Women could not testify in their own defense. Even a husband's defense was considered conflicted and unreliable. Evidence was often fabricated, as in Henetmehet's case, orchestrated by Amenhotep, her husband's younger brother. The asymmetry was total. Men could have sexual relations with slaves, servants, or prostitutes without consequence. Women could not speak to other men without risking death, mutilation, or lifelong servitude. Egyptian legal philosophy treated male sexual activity as harmless to Ma'at, whereas female sexuality, if uncontrolled, was considered a cosmic threat. After purification, Henetmehet was assigned to lifelong temple servitude, the least severe final punishment but still devastating. She worked in windowless cells, performing tasks considered polluting, cleaning floors, preparing bodies for mummification, and maintaining temple waste areas. Her branded face was refreshed annually. She could not leave, speak freely, participate in rituals, or prepare her own burial. Her children believed she had died, her existence erased. The second category of final punishment, exile to mines, was effectively a death sentence. Women were chained, marched across the desert, and forced to work in extreme heat, crawling through tunnels and chipping rock with bronze tools. Water and food were minimal, and survival beyond 18 months was rare. The most severe punishment was public execution, reserved for women of high status whose adultery carried political implications. Methods were designed to destroy both body and soul, preventing the Ba spirit from reuniting with the Ka life force in the afterlife. Standard execution involved drowning in the Nile while bound in weighted sacks, the sacred river itself acting as a divine judge. Hennet Mehet's story represents only ordinary women. At the other end of the spectrum, women of noble birth faced even more creative and cruel punishments. Tawisrit, principal wife of Pharaoh Seti II, governed Egypt competently as regent. After her husband's death, powerful priests and nobles opposed female rule and accused her of adultery to remove her from power. Evidence was circumstantial but presented as fact. She met with administrators, gave gifts, and conducted governance, normal duties reinterpreted as illicit acts. Tawisrit was sealed alive in a tomb in the Valley of the Queens, a punishment drawing on funerary customs but inverted into horror. She survived months, leaving messages carved into walls, describing starvation, dehydration, and psychological torment. Her death was deliberate, ensuring the erasure of her legacy. Her name was chiseled from monuments, her authority attributed to male advisors. The pattern of political destruction through adultery accusations persisted across centuries. Ordinary women suffered under the same system. Mutnafret, married at 13 to a violent potter, was accused of infidelity at 16 during pregnancy. Egyptian law credited her husband's word over her own, and she was convicted despite biological impossibility of the claim. During her 15-day purification, she miscarried, but Egyptian legal procedure forbade review. Her mother's petition for mercy was denied. Mutnafret served 8 years in temple servitude before dying, likely by starvation, her body buried without ceremony in the temple desert. Medical papyri reveal that Egyptian physicians were complicit, preserving life to extend suffering. The Udwan Smith papyrus details wound care that prevents infection but does not allow full healing, ensuring permanent scars. Nubamun Tut, a physician at Karnak Temple, documented cases clinically, noting fractures, infections, and psychological deterioration. He questioned his ethical role but continued, trapped within a system larger than individual conscience. The historical patterns persisted. Roman law, the Justinian Code, medieval European law, and later honor killings all reflect Egyptian principles. Female sexual autonomy is a threat. Punishment is public and violent. Men's behavior is unregulated. Acid attacks, forced marriages, and legal discrimination against women continue similar logic. Globally, as of 2025, 20 countries criminalize adultery, often with harsher penalties for women. Modern statistics echo ancient dynamics. Approximately 35% of women worldwide experience physical or sexual violence from partners. Laws undervaluing women's testimony or permitting male guardianship replicate Egyptian gender asymmetry. Systems of control and punishment evolved but remain fundamentally unchanged. Returning to Hennet Mehet, her life before punishment was rich. Mother to 3 children, skilled textile worker, friend, and neighbor. She sang traditional songs, taught her children, and created beauty through her craft. Every aspect of her existence, skills, relationships, love, was stripped away by law treating her as disposable. Her children were lied to, her husband rummaried, and the family was reshaped without her presence. Hennet Mehet, death in her early 30s, was quietly recorded as heart failure. Buried in unmarked linen, no ritual was performed. Her name vanished from genealogies. Yet her story survives because of the protest papyrus written by her husband, arguing the injustice of false accusations. Temple authorities rejected his plea, prioritizing legal procedure over truth or mercy. These cases illuminate not just ancient cruelty, but the mechanics of systemic oppression, legal frameworks, theological justifications, medical complicity, social enforcement, and intergenerational erasure. They reveal how intelligent, educated people can participate in atrocity while rationalizing actions as service to order and justice. Hunut Mahut Mutnafrut Tawasrupt, ordinary and royal women alike, show that systems designed to control female bodies have persisted from Pluna. Their stories remind us that legal integrity can be weaponized against individuals, and that suffering can be justified through ideology. The architecture of control, laws, punishments, societal norms, has been preserved across time, adapting but fundamentally unchanged. Remembering these women restores identity stolen by history. They were mothers, rulers, daughters, and artisans. They sang, worked, loved, and hoped. Their lives were systematically erased. Yet their suffering and resilience, recorded in fragments of papyri, legal texts, and archaeology, compel us to understand both the past and its echoes in the present. To truly grasp the scope of ancient Egyptian cruelty and its ongoing resonance, one must confront the human realities beneath law and ritual, not merely the abstract principles. Their voices, silenced in their own time, demand acknowledgement, study, and reflection, reminding us that the consequences of unchecked systemic power are as relevant now as they were 3,000 years ago. History, law, and power intersect in the lives of these women, revealing enduring truths. Control over women's bodies has long been institutionalized. Punishment often masquerades as morality, and complicity extends to those who enforce the system. The study of Hunut Mahut, Mutnafrut, and Tawasrupt teaches that systemic cruelty is rarely the act of a single villain. It is the predictable outcome of procedures, structures, and beliefs that value order over justice. We see this in archaeology, papyri, and legal records. We see it in the erosion of female authority, the erasure of existence, and the meticulous documentation of suffering. And we see it in modern patterns, from domestic violence to legal discrimination, honor killings, and societal shamming practices. These are not isolated incidents, but a continuum of control spanning Pluna. The study of these stories demands reflection: how societies justify harm, how legal and medical systems enforce cruelty, and how silence and complicity sustain oppression. Yet by examining Hunut Mahut's 15 days of purification, Mutnafrut's miscarriage and temple servitude, and Tawasrupt's sealed tomb, we uncover resilience, human complexity, and the imperative to recognize injustice. Through meticulous record-keeping, archaeology, and modern scholarship, these erased lives are partially restored. Their suffering reminds us that law can be weaponized, that procedure can supersede morality, and that systems designed to maintain cosmic or social order often do so at profound human cost. Hunut Mahut, Mutnafrut, and Tawasrupt were not merely victims. They were witnesses to the extremes of institutional power. Their legacies compel modern observers to challenge ongoing injustices, to recognize patterns of gendered control, and to question the ethics of systems that prioritize procedure over human dignity. Ultimately, their stories endure as warnings. When power operates unchecked, when ideology masks cruelty, and when justice is subordinated to order, human lives can be destroyed with calculated precision. By remembering them, studying their experiences, and confronting the legacy of systemic oppression, we honor not only their lives but the enduring struggle for justice that continues today.